Hello, and welcome to another critical conversation. This conversation is around exploring the impact of COVID-19 on education. I'm interviewing everyday people like you and I to see how COVID has affected their educational experience. I'm Wanda L. Scott. I'm an educational consultant. I love all things education. So we're going to find out what's going on in the world. So my interview today is with the lovely Natasha Yokley. Natasha, can you tell us about yourself?
Yes, hello, Wanda. Thank you for having me. As Wanda mentioned, I'm Natasha Yokley. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I have three children. I call them children. However, the oldest is 29. I have a 20-year-old who is a college sophomore at the University of Memphis. And I have a 15-year-old son who is in high school. Uh, I am a licensed realtor in the state of Tennessee, as I mentioned before, and I'm also a full-time employee with Matthew Walker Comprehensive Health Center. So as you can see, I tend to wear many hats. I have a couple of careers that seem to keep me busy, but I would say the busiest career is my kids, being at home, being accessible for my son, especially during these unprecedented times.
I can tell you do a lot of things, and I can only imagine that when COVID hit in March 2020, that was a huge adjustment for you. Can you tell me your experience last year around your job, school, and having a one of your children off at college?
Oh, let me say this. COVID-19 definitely impacted the day-to-day operations of our household. Um, I'll start with my youngest son, who was in high school, who's 15. It was very challenging. It was very frustrating. Um, he went from the point of going to school every day, interacting with people, having some sort of socialism and social exposure to other people. And you have to keep in mind, he's very quiet. He's a bit reserved. So being around people every day is something that I've always felt is kind of just good for him and his personality, because he can kind of sit back to the side. But when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, he was home. He was home every day. And several weeks went by before I really realized the impact of being home every day, before I really wanted to just processed like, he's here. He's alone. I leave the house at 7:30. I come back, at 5:30. I'm rushing, trying to get my time in, trying to get that gym time in, so to speak. And it dawned on me, like, he's only around someone just a few hours, and then it's time to go to bed and it's time to get up and start all over again. And it got to a point where the workload that he had from school, it was overwhelming. The school that he is in, the workload did not decrease. The rigor did not go anywhere. So it was like his work was just piling up. And, I guess somewhere through there, I decided to throw on the cape and jump in like, okay, this is just too much for anybody. I got to help him,
Yeah.
I started helping with projects. I started helping with projects, but guess what? I got stressed out because I found myself, like, literally, I had created a board at my job. And this board didn't have anything about my job. It had his schedule, his teachers' names, their numbers, codes for me to log in to see when assignments were due. And one of the things, just kind of tying it into him being, at home every day by himself, it was kind of also during this period, we started to hear more about high school students, depression, isolation. And it just hit my spirit one morning. It was like, you have to do something different because you spend the day at work. You try to get that time in for yourself. Those who like to exercise and get some form of workout regimen in. So I was trying to do that. I was trying to get everything in, but it just dawned on me that I felt like I was not giving him enough time. At that point, I made some changes. I did, a few simple things. I said, okay, you've got to restructure. And I basically had to manage and reshape time. What could I do to make sure that my child, who was having this overwhelming load of work, and when I mean it was piling up, when I would check online, he was like many assignments behind. I don't mean a couple, maybe 10 or more. And they just kept piling and piling and piling. So one of the things that I did, just to give him some more time with me, people time, so to speak. It was just the two of us in this house because, as I mentioned, his brother's at school and my daughter, she has her own place. So as opposed to taking my lunch and going to the gym, which I thought was a good thing because, I'm trying to get it in shape, get it going, get my physique together. I said, no, you can't do that. I started to take my lunch hour, my lunch time, come home. So I would come home each day for my lunch, and we would literally just talk. We might watch an episode on Netflix or something, just something for him to step away. I began to see a little light, I began to see, a little more excitement in him, even though the work was still there. So that was one of the things that we kind of implemented that really, I feel like kind of sparked a little bit of excitement in him because, at that point, he was just like tired of school, and I was tired of school for him. So, just kind of going forward with that, he had homework every evening. He worked on school work all night. So if you picture your online virtual from 8 until about close to 2 o'clock, this is Central Time, PM. And then you had an hour lunch in between. And then he had all this in the evening. When I would come home, he's on his laptop doing work, all evening. And then the weekend came and you think, well, maybe we can do something fun to lighten the load. But he still had work because the work continued to pile.
Wow.
And to me, it was as if teachers didn't take into consideration, I don't know if it was because they were virtual, but it was like they didn't take into consideration that every child learns at a different pace. And I can recall was a break coming up, and we were working so hard so that he could get caught up on everything because I really wanted him to enjoy that break. And he had to literally work through the break. And then by the time that first 9 weeks ended, he, was like, he's caught up. And then I can remember right at the beginning of the second 9-week period, went out there, looked again, and guess what? He was starting to get behind again.
Natasha, were you able to reach out to his teachers, or did they reach out to you?
I reached out to them. I emailed each teacher individually. We discussed his grades. We discussed the plan. I asked for more time. Now, they were open to more time. They were fine with that. I think one of the things that we established was that he, as a young adult, needed to really to communicate with his instructors. So that was an area that we found that he needed to improve upon, his communication with his instructors to let them know, I need more time. So that was definitely like a lesson that he learned, to step up and to speak up and, for himself and to be an advocate for himself and to let, just to let him know, hey, I need a little more time on this, or, hey, I'm going to have to submit this late, because now that they would take the work, so that really, them not accepting the work wasn't an issue at all. It just kept coming.
So what was the contrast with your son in college? how did how did COVID impact him being away at college?
With Keston, well, for one, his classes were virtual. So he wasn't going to class every day. So that wasn't a concern. He had 3 other roommates, so he was not so isolated. You know, he had friends around him, you know, for support, so to speak. Now, from an academic standpoint, he would constantly tell me, he's like, this is a lot of work. You know, he just felt like he was getting a lot of busy work, so to speak. He said, you know, I just don't recall courses from the previous semester being so just tedious or busy work, so to speak. So he just felt like he was just loaded with a lot of busy work. But he got it done. While we're just talking about COVID, this is another issue that came up while he was there. It has to do with COVID, but not really the academics of it. But this is a plug-in as to how college students and all people really need to keep their guard up, you know, even with people that you know. And, you know, he had gotten accustomed to a friend or two coming over playing video games. And from that, he actually got COVID. Yes. And I was devastated. I was like, I'm in public health. I've taught you this. I've told you this. Wash your hands. Use your sanitizer. Don't let people in. And he was like, well, Mom, I'm going to be okay. And I'm like, you don't know that. You know, we really don't know a lot about this to know what the outcome and, you know, what happens beyond once you come out of quarantine. You know, we don't know what it looks like a year from now. And I'm going down another path, so I'll come back to education. But that was another issue that we had to deal with, you know, with Keston being away at school.
Wow. And that was, I was wondering about that. And no, thank you so much for bringing your area of health expertise into this conversation, because I have several friends with children in college, and I can only imagine, you know, a level of anxiety or stress about having them away from you during this time. And then to hear that he got COVID. So I know he recovered, and how is he doing now?
He's doing well now, but you know, Wanda, I can recall a day, it was very emotional. I had called him because this was maybe like the second day after being diagnosed, and he had been running a fever. And, you know, although he was 19 at the time, he's still my baby, he's still my son. And I called and I called, and I called maybe 5 times, and I did not get an answer. And I text, no response. So finally I had tracked down some people who knew some people and got everybody's phone number that was in his room. You know, I mentioned he had 3 other roommates. So I called his closest buddy, and I was like, hey, have you talked to Keston? I said, I know he's in his room. Is he okay? And he said, Miss Yokley, I'm not sure. I tried calling him last night and he didn't answer. And I called him this morning and he didn't answer. When I say I literally had jumped in my car and I was headed to Memphis. And I didn't have much on, but I was heading to Memphis. I was like, I gotta get
Mama's going, yes.
Something's wrong. And literally he walked through their apartment and I could hear him knock on the door. And then I heard him say, hey dude, you okay? And tears just rolled down my face. I was like, this is too much. Oh my God, this is too much. And he called, he said, well, your mom's been trying to reach you. You need to call her. And you know, I went in. You need to call me every day. You need to let me know that you're okay. I'm just boo-hooing. He's like, Mama, I'm fine. I'm like, you just did.
Well, I mean, I'm happy that we have the good news that he recovered. Were his studies, did they give him grace on any assignments? How did that impact his studies?
You know, that's my star child. So he kept up with everything. I mean, he did well this semester. He finished strong. So I mean, it did not affect his grades.
So I'm very happy to hear that. I'm very happy to hear that.
Very
Um,
proud of them.
yeah, so I mean, that's two major challenges as a mom with your high schooler with that workload, finding that pace, virtual school, you know, you making those scheduling sacrifices. I applaud you on that. And then surviving through, that scare with your college student. You covered a lot of ground in 2020 with this. So I guess my closing question to you is, based on all that you overcame in 2020, what are you bringing into 2021 that you have learned, that you conquered?
Yeah, conquered. I don't know about conquered, but then since look, we are in 2021 and classes actually started for Kingdom on yesterday. He's the one that is in high school. And the first thing that I asked him, I looked at the clock in my office and I said, oh, school's over. And I said, how did it go? And he said, oh, it went fine. And I said, homework, anything you need to get started on? Any projects today? And he said, no, we were just scheduling and I guess kind of getting classes together for the semester. So I exhaled, and I know that he's exhaled because, it's like, okay, he has one more weekend. He can kind of just sit back and relax and breathe before it all starts over again. Now, they did make a few changes to his schedule that I was glad about. I don't know if the rigor and if the pace will change at all. But now, as opposed to the virtual mandatory online every day, he has Wednesday to kind of work on his, schoolwork and to kind of work at a self pace. I guess that would be the best way to say that. I would say 2021 will definitely be just, being there for my son, being supportive, still coming home. One of the changes that I've made, I think I had mentioned that I started coming home every day. Another word I'd like to use would be, in taking care of myself, is balance, to make sure that I balance everything out. So on the 2021 semester schedule, I will, Monday, Wednesday, I'll come home. Tuesday, Thursday, I'll go to the gym and get a workout in. So I think that'll give balance. For now, on Fridays, I still have half a days for now. That's definitely up in the air. So I get home early, on Fridays, and we're able to watch a movie or do something, play some cards. I've even taught him how to play Tonk.
Well, thank you so much, Natasha, for sharing a bit of your life with us, sharing your 2020 COVID journey. You will find when you watch these other interviews that you are not alone, that you're seeking balance and trying to get a schedule. This is a universal truth. Now, to all those who are joining us online on YouTube, thank you for viewing. Thank you for taking the time to explore with us how COVID-19 has impacted education. We want to hear from you. Like this video, subscribe to the channel so you'll know when other videos come out, and leave a comment. If you can relate to Natasha Yokley and her COVID education story, leave us a comment. Tell other people about the Critical Conversation series. Thank you.